In this video, I'm going to show you how to create this very loosely painted watercolor rose. So this technique is based on a simple C stroke, which you can see right here, which repeats itself over and over again. So I think it's best to practice that first. So what you're going to want to have is a medium-sized brush, preferably with a point. Now I know some of you don't have that, so you'll just have to make do. Now it's really important when you create that rose is to actually go ahead and grab some paint from your little paint pot and bring it over to your tray and add a good amount of water to it. Okay, we want the paint to be pretty light. Okay, we don't want dark paint. Okay, so I'm using red violet. If you don't have red violet, you can use red, and also what looks good is the violet. As you saw, I did the violet. Okay, so I think it's best to first practice your C stroke. Okay, and honestly, I almost want to call it a cross between a C, the letter C, and a crescent moon. So I'm just gonna show you how to do it. So it's not a real full C, right? So you might want to just kind of practice that. All right, and what you want to do when we start at the center of the flower, we want to have it to be pretty flat. You see how it's pretty flat, right? Like a regular C would be like that, right? Okay. I mean, if you started like that too, that's fine. The beauty of doing this project is that it's almost kind of abstract. It's an impression of a rose. It's not very realistic, but it gives you an impression of the rose, and it's kind of light and sweet and simplified, and it looks really pretty when it's done. Okay, so I would just practice the C's and the crescents, practice them a few times on a little practice paper or in the corner of your paper, you know, and have them go this way and that way. All right, so just kind of play around with it. Just keep practicing, okay? All right. And, you know, the great thing is you can pause the video if you need to. All right, so let's move on to the actual rose. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And the good thing is you can always pause the video if you need to. So once again, I'm going to go to my pigment that I've already loosened up. I don't want to use a lot. Okay, remember, the biggest mistake that beginning watercolorists do is make so much paint, so much thick pigment, right? That's way too dark. Look how dark that is. You don't want to go that dark, okay? You want to keep it really light, almost transparent. Right there, you can see that right there, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I'm not going to keep dipping my paintbrush in the paint. I'm going to just start with this. Okay, so here we go. All right, so there's my beginning, my C, right? And then I'm going to do a little one right there, and you can barely tell that it's a C, and that's okay. And if they come together, it's okay. See, that came together. Not a problem. And I'm just going to start building more C's around it. Now, the key is to keep some of the white showing so that you get kind of a highlight for your rose. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do another C. And I'm just going to keep building up my C's. Now right there I have a lot of white, too much white. So I'm going to go back and I'm just going to kind of wiggle that in there and get a little more. And that's okay because it's abstract. I don't want to have too much white showing. In fact, I'm just going to have it kind of bleed together a little. All right, I like that. Okay, and then I'm just going to keep moving outward. And don't freak out if it bleeds together with the other C's. It's okay. And I am not going to keep adding more paint to my brush. There's plenty of pigment on my brush. I don't need a lot. You want to keep the color pretty pale. Okay, so I'm getting bigger and bigger with my C's. And if I need to kind of make it more pointed, I can drag my brush down a little. And I can always add a little more pigment. I've got so much pigment on my brush, and I just keep going. There's a lot of empty space there, which I don't want, so I'm just going to kind of bring that a little in. And I'm trying to keep it rounded. Now that side looks good. I need to add a little more on this side. And it gets paler and paler as I get farther and farther away from the center, which is what you want, okay? All right, I think that looks pretty good. I don't really want to do any more. Now, I'm going to lift a little bit of the pigment off with my brush and just bring it over here a little. Okay. Now, if you want to add a little bit of yellow, I think it looks really nice. You don't need a lot. So once again, I'm getting a little bit of yellow, and I'm just going to go ahead and make it really watery, really light, super pale. And see, my brush is really loaded with a lot of water, right? And very little paint. And then I can just go in there and drop a little bit of that yellow here and there. It just gives it a little bit of contour. Okay, and if it comes together, that's okay. All right, I don't want to do too much. That's good. Okay, all right, so I got one done. I'm gonna make another one. So once again, make your C, make a little C in there. It's kind of like a dot. And then just keep adding more C's or crescents around it. And don't worry if it's not even. You don't want it to be even. Flowers. The roses are not even. And if you can't get the point, you can always just try to get it with the tip of your brush, like I'm doing. And I'm making my flowers pretty close together because I want to kind of create a tight composition. What is a composition? Composition is how an artist sets up their work of art, okay? How is the artist going to put everything together? So for me, I want my composition of 3 flowers to be close together. All right, so I like that. I'm going to lift some of this color and just bring it down to the other petals, keeping it nice and pale. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to clean my brush and get a little bit of that yellow again. And just drop it in there. Okay, so I like that. All right, so I'm going to do one more right here. Clean my brush, go and get my red violet, and once again make my little C, my even smaller C, and then I just keep building more C's around it. And I'm going to lift the color here and bring it over here. And then go ahead, once again, clean my brush and drop a little bit of yellow in there. And yellow with the red violet will make it kind of orangey, which I really like. Okay, so now we want to add a few leaves. So you might want to practice your leaves up here. Remember, it's kind of like a triangle, right? Okay, but then you curve out a little on each side and come to a point and add a little bit more at the top, right? And there you have your leaf. Okay, see how light my green is? Once again, grab your pigment from your little paint pot and go ahead and put it on your tray. See how translucent that is? That's what we're going for. Now I want to play around a little bit with my color. And I'm going to add just a tiny bit of blue to it just because I really like the way that looks. And so you can practice again, make your triangle. And then curve it outward and just extend it. And there you have your leaf. Okay, so I'm not liking that, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little more blue to it and then a little more green. Okay, that's what I want. All right, so now I'm just going to add some leaves around the edges. And remember, triangle, right? And you can leave a little bit of white. It's okay if it bleeds together. Remember to turn your paper to help you paint. Okay, so if you want to add more leaves, you can. I think I'll add another one right here, a smaller one. All right, so I always like to add a little bit of brown to my leaves, just a teeny weeny bit. So I'm gonna take a little bit of brown and put it on my palette and thin it out with lots of water, and then just drop a little bit at the edge. Just gives it a little more dimension. I like the way it looks. Here it kind of happened because of the orange. The orange with the green kind of made it brown already, so that can happen. Okay, so I think this is looking pretty good. All right. I am going to wait for this to dry, and then I am going to add a little more detail with dark green here in the leaves, but you can see they're still wet. So I'll show you what that looks like during class. All right, see you in class.